Wait for the little red light. Yeah, here we go. So next on my list is Marion and Mercedes, but I'll let you guys introduce yourselves when you do your presentation, if that's okay. So we are now on to Miranda.
Hello. So I've literally just started a job as a project officer for the Sutherland Community Partnership. I started on Monday, so this is day 4, working out of the Cardiff Sutherland Development Trust. I have had a bit of experience with Foundation Scotland before because I'm also the secretary for Lairg Community Council, so I've been reporting any funding that we've had back to them. So, but I'm very much looking forward to finding out a bit more about everything that you do.
Thank you, Miranda, and congratulations on your new role. Next up is Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah, manage Lairg and District Learning Centre, and I've been here about 5 weeks. I was here previously. We did a lot of climate change projects, so I'm aware of how much we were talking about before, how the funding landscape has changed. So we get funding from lots of different places, probably about 10 streams now. The biggest one we've got is the Highland Community Waste Partnership, which we work with Thurso quite a lot on. And that's about it, really. Just looking, I'm really interested in exploring heritage and archaeology. There seems to be a lot of interest in the community in those areas. So when I've had my kind of 3 months of finding out where everything is with the organisation, that's what the focus is going to be.
Cool, that's exciting. And lastly, but not least, we've got Steve.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good, cool. Steve Marquis, I'm based in Thurso. I work for Permaculture Association in Scotland and SCAN as well, the Scottish Community Climate Action Network, both on a voluntary basis, or occasionally it's being paid. And the idea is we're trying to create something from a European network, actually one of the last to get European funding. It's community climate coaches, qualifications, if you like, career path, that sort of stuff. There's a lot of climate action going on and to go on if we're to crack this, and it's to give people a way of developing and managing their career going forward. And we're just about to start to launch in the UK, very early stages, probably looking for funding, and we'll probably launch in Scotland first.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody. There was a few people that missed the very beginning of the session, so just a very brief recap. I'm Marion. I work for the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub. I'm based in Thurso, and I'm one of 2 senior project officers. So yeah, we're thrilled to have Foundation Scotland with us today, and I will just pass over to Marion and Mercedes to take it from there.
Lovely, thanks, Marion. I'm not sure if Marion McDonald might have frozen. So if not, I'm going to start anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but I will share my screen with the presentation. Just for a bit of context, I'm Mercedes Jones. I'm a bit of an anomaly in that I'm based in Edinburgh, and I run a lot of the national programmes that we have. So some of the larger scale grant making programmes, things like Crown Estate Scotland and those types of initiatives. So I'll put my contact details at the end if people do want to contact me on those sort of national programmes, but I'll just share my screen. Marion's back.
Sorry, but here I am in the centre of Inverness and my internet just disappeared. Apologies for that.
So just to kick things off, thank you very much to the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub for welcoming us today. We're going to do a bit of a blended session. I will start off by talking about Foundation Scotland and who we are. Some of you might be quite familiar with us, some of you might not have too much of an idea about who we are. And then we'll move on to the communities team, which is the team in which Marion's part of. And that is very much about place-based funding, and she can sort of direct you to various funds that are within the Highlands in your geographic area. We'll look at the Community Benefit Fund consultation and have some questions. I'll also be showing you elements of our website just in case you aren't too familiar, because there's a lot of sort of different funds that we have available and it can be a bit overwhelming. And we'll do a few questions and answers at the end before having the presentation from Andy. So just for a bit of context, Foundation Scotland, we are Scotland's community foundation. So we are part of a network of UK community foundations. Typically, the model for community foundations is that they tend to be shaped around counties or cities. So south of the border, you'll often find places like Leeds, London, Milton Keynes. They all have their own community foundations. The devolved nations tend to have just the one. So Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland are covered by just one community foundation, and we are one of the biggest in the UK. We've been operating for over 25 years, and due to the fact that we cover such a wide geographic area, we have staff members in lots of different parts of Scotland. As I said, I'm in Edinburgh, Marion's in Inverness, and we have people dotted all over because we are very much committed to place-based funding. In terms of what we do as a community foundation, essentially we distribute and administer grant making. So what that means is we have sort of various different streams within the foundation. We have philanthropy, in the traditional sense, which is the team that I belong to. And in that team, we work with individual philanthropists, we work with companies, charitable trusts and public agencies, and we work with them to set up their own grant making schemes. So these are a few examples that you can see on the screen. Relevant to Highlands and Islands, recently we worked with CalMac to develop their community grants programme. And from our side, what we do is we promote the programme, we welcome in applications, we oversee the assessment process, and then we assist with the decision-making process. So we're sort of the one-stop shop when it comes to grant making. We have the communities team, which Marion will go into in a little bit, and that's sort of the other stream within the foundation. And then more recently, we actually have a third stream, which is all about social investment. So if people are interested in social investment, that's sort of a blend of grant making and loans, typically to go towards social enterprises. That was largely set up just prior and then really sort of took speed during the pandemic. If you are interested, we do have sort of a whole section on our website about social investment. So really, we tend to have three streams within the foundation. Just to go back to this, sorry, you can see that we have quite a lot of clients, but actually, all in all, we have over 400 funds. So we are very much a large grant maker, let's say. We also work within the communities context with renewable energy providers. As you can see here, Vattenfall, they have a fund up in Ness, and also they cover Aberdeen. And Marion will go into a little bit more about that in a minute. But just to say that our clients are very, very sort of diverse and cover lots of different themes. Some of our grant making programs tend to be very sort of thematically based. So we have programs that specifically target projects that work with young people, projects that work with women, projects that work with people moving on from abuse. And then we have sort of wider scale grant making programs that tend to be a bit broader in terms of tackling inequalities or health related issues, for example. I realised that 400 funds is quite a sort of scary number, and you might not know where to start when it comes to the amount of funding that's available with us. So I will just move away from this presentation, and basically what I want to take you to is our website, which you can see here, but let me just share the screen. There we go. Lovely. So hopefully you can see this. So this is our website, and if you are new to the organisation and you're interested in finding out the various sort of pots of funding available, if you go to the apply for funding section and click on funding available, you'll see that there's also funding available for social investment. But this is sort of the general page. If you scroll down, because we cover the whole of Scotland, you can actually filter the funds by local authority, as well as filter by those that are national. So, for example, let's go to somewhere, let's go to the Highlands. That's probably most fitting. You can filter by funds that are available right now, i.e. that they're open for applications, or you can filter by all funds within that geographic area. If you scroll down, you'll see the various different funding pots available. These have a brief sort of description when it comes to the theme of the funds and the grant sizes. But if you clicked on one, it would take you to the individual funding page. Now, these are the most helpful pages when it comes to those individual funds. So they have all of the information that you would need. You can see when the fund is open, when it's closing, what the application deadline would be. You can see what the grant size would be. You can also see who the sort of donor is in regards to the fund. So with this one, it's EDF Renewables. And then we try to provide as much information as we can about the purpose of the fund, the background, especially with these community place-based funds. A lot of sort of geographic council areas come into play, so it's definitely worth having a little look. And then just for a bit of context, we also have frequently asked questions on most of our funding pages. But if you are interested in applying for individual funds, it is this page that you'll need to come to. So the individual funding page is on the website, because this is where you access the application form. So we moved over to an online portal, which we hope has sort of streamlined the grant making process for donors and applicants. Basically, if you're interested in filling out an application for a specific fund, with the caveat that that fund is open, you just click on apply here, and then if you set up your sort of portal account and login, you can create your application form and submit it on that portal. You can go in and out of the portal as much as you'd like, edit the form, and you can sort of have a bit more flexibility when it comes to putting documents in there, etc. So everything is done online, but I should mention as well, importantly, for all of the funding pages, and this is quite serendipitous because Marion is the community funds advisor for this fund. For application queries, we have a central system support team, and they'll deal with any of the technical issues that might happen in the portal. And then if you have really specific questions about a fund, so for example, you might have a project idea, but you don't know if it's eligible, or you just want to discuss your possible proposal with somebody who sort of manages the fund, then you'll be able to find the name of the community funds advisor for that fund, the email address and the number. And that is for all of our funds. So always just scroll down to the bottom of the page and you should be able to find who's in charge of which fund. We have some useful links for applicants, fund news and featured case studies. So we've really sort of tried to provide as much information as possible. If you click on funded projects as well, you can also see every organisation that's received monies recently from that fund and what they received the monies for as well. So hopefully that's useful. I'm going to hand over to Marion, but just to say, if you have any questions on national programmes, feel free to put your questions in the chat. I can also reach out to you individually if you'd like, if you provide your email address, and then I can get in contact with you one by one. So I'll pass over to Marion. Marion, do you want me to share the screen, or are you happy to?
I'll just do it. I guess that's as easy.
Perfect.
Oops. Is that okay? Can you see the pictures? Lovely wind farms. Great, thanks for that, Mercedes. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the community benefit side of things, and I'll try and keep it as specific to you guys as possible. So in terms of my introduction, so I'm part of the community fund team based in the north, based in Inverness actually, and I am involved with funds in Highland, Moray, and in Aberdeenshire. The community team is mostly involved with funds linked to renewable energy projects, which do tend to be very locally focused. That's kind of a key aspect of them, although they do come in all shapes and sizes, and there are always exceptions to every rule. But generally speaking, they've got a focus on a single community or a group of communities, usually around about a wind farm itself. The Foundation Scotland really is quite a big player, I guess, in this area. So we're involved with over 100 community benefit funds now, which is a fair proportion of them all in terms of what's available in Scotland. So I have colleagues from Caithness down to the borders, and we have got a fairly a local presence. If we're not actually in the communities that we're working with, we're certainly in the vicinity of them. So we do have that kind of local knowledge as well. So we're working with a vast number of communities and building up, I guess, hopefully a lot of experience and some expertise in the whole sector, as well as having the benefit of our wider colleagues in the kind of grant making sphere. Country. I guess some of the key issues in terms of accessing the community benefit funds. So our role is usually as a brought on by the developer or sometimes by the community to provide the extra support that they need for the kind of a successful grant making scheme, which it can be an additional burden in some ways on what is usually local volunteers, and you'll know yourselves if you're involved in one local group, you're probably involved in several. So we provide a lot of the support to the communities, but at the end of the day, generally speaking, it is a panel of local volunteers who actually make the decisions on the grant awards based on the kind of checks and the information that we manage to provide. Some differences there, as I say, there's no two funds are just exactly the same. We have education and training schemes, for example, and some of those panels will involve people who are involved in the sector rather than necessarily very community-based. But generally speaking, local volunteers make the decisions. So very much focused on local activity and activity which takes place in a defined geographical area. There are awards that go to larger scale organisations, but generally speaking, they have to demonstrate that they are providing specific benefit to the fund area in order to qualify for funding. And examples of that would be, for example, Macmillan nurses. They provide a service nationwide, but if they can demonstrate they're providing service to the local community, then there's potential for them to be funded by a local community benefit fund. Similarly, if there's an organisation which provides a service in the vicinity of the fund area, a service which is not being provided in the specific area of benefit, then they may also get supported by the local fund. Examples of that would be the Strathpeffer Community Park, which has received funding from some of the other local wind farms in the area, as well as their own Strathpeffer pot. Or a general fundraising appeal for the Puffin hydrotherapy pool in Dingwall was an example a few years ago. So local funds out with Dingwall supported that fundraiser because they felt that their local residents would benefit from the hydrotherapy pool, and there wasn't one in their own area. So there are certainly occasions where larger organisations or organisations delivering in a different locality might receive support. But as a general rule, you have to be able to demonstrate what benefit you have got to those specific residents, and it might be just a proportion of what you're looking for would be funded based on that local impact. The kind of key thing is certainly, as Mercedes said, to get in touch with the the fund advisor in the first instance if you've got any kind of queries and questions. And I think also we are involved with a lot of community benefit funds, but by no means all of them. But some of these sort of scenarios would apply to any funder. Important to know the area they cover, important to know the criteria and the priorities that any fund has. There's almost always information available somewhere about that, and it's always really important to read it. You'll find that applying for funding is kind of a job in itself, so you don't want to be kind of misdirecting your efforts. So it's important to have a look and find, to narrow down, do the research and find which fund is going to be most applicable to what it is that you want to do. So read the guidelines, and then if there is ever a contact, a named contact for a fund, I would always suggest getting in touch with them and having a conversation about what you're thinking of doing, and seeing what kind of information they can give you to help with that whole process. And I think certainly in terms of the Foundation Scotland context, and I imagine this would be the same with other funders too, if somebody makes an inquiry about a local fund and it's just not really relevant to what they want to do, we always try and direct them somewhere else. That's something that we can do within the organisation as well. I mean, I do have examples of where a project has not been able to be funded locally or not be funded entirely locally. We can share that kind of request with our colleagues in philanthropy, for example, and then occasionally, if we're lucky, there'll be another donor and somewhere else who's looking to fund just this kind of thing, and we can manage to match them up. So when that works out, that's brilliant. But we would certainly always try and direct people to useful sources. So within the context of the local area and the local priorities that the fund is aiming to address, one of the advantages of the community benefit funds is they are actually very flexible and they can cover a whole range of costs. The funding counts as private funding, so that can also be an advantage if you're putting together a kind of a funding package. It can often be 100% fully funded as well through a community benefit fund, which again can be a real advantage if you're fortunate enough to have one in your area. So as I say, they come in all shapes and sizes. We work with a whole lot of different sorts of organisations. In some cases, it is the actual developer of the wind farm. In some cases, it's a community company who maybe have a stake in the wind farm or own some turbines themselves. Not always turbines, of course. We also have hydro schemes and various other sorts of projects which produce community benefit. But yes, essentially, there's a whole lot of different organisations involved there. And I guess our role is often just that kind of third party between the decision makers and between the applicants. And hopefully we take a lot of certainly a lot of the administration and the kind of extra work that goes along for the community volunteers, and they can focus on the kind of key role that the community will have is developing the strategy for the fund, working out what the priorities are, and as I say, and ultimately also making the decisions of what will get awarded. Oh, I think I've missed a slide there. I have one. So this one had a whole list of all the funds. Where's that got to? All right. Right. Sorry, thrown there. I thought I did a slide that had all the funds available in Highland.
I've found it, Marion, but it was hidden, so I can share it at the end.
Okay, right, brilliant. I mean, probably you will know yourselves which funds are available to your area. It is a kind of a constant changing thing, and I say, obviously, of course, it's not. They're not all administered by Foundation Scotland. What I thought I would do is just pick out a couple of the ones we're involved with, just to give you kind of a flavour of it, and I'll try to highlight the ones which are relevant to people who are on this call as well. Am I still? Yeah, I thought I'd frozen again there. So lost your picture, Mercedes. You're my one contact in the in the room. So some of the kind of themed funds that we have as well, we operate various education and training funds. There are several of these in Ness, and the one that I'm involved with covers a fair stretch of Rossshire from sort of Loch over to Peffer and Marybank. So this is a focus which the developer has opted for, essentially, to provide funding to residents for education and training costs. This one is also a wee bit different in that organisations can also apply for training funds. So that is something that's a wee bit unusual, actually, because we do fund businesses, and it's one of the few funds, I think, that provides support to potentially private sector employees, although mostly ends up being third sector organisations who get the support. So we do have some of these kind of themed funds. The slide earlier, which had the giant key on it, is the Vattenfall Unlock Our Future Fund, and that's an example of one in a fund that covers Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen City, and it's all for climate-related projects. So, you know, in some cases, developers do take kind of a different approach to that, and I think we might see more of that actually going forward as more kind of quite large-scale projects do come on stream in the next few years. So, education and training funds are certainly one aspect. Just an example of a community fund in terms of, this is the Cornwall Fund for Conton, not an enormous fund, but it does fund some lovely projects. They've done some great archaeology work, actually. I think somebody mentioned that at the start, so can give you information about that separately. The kind of key thing here is that they have particular priorities that they're interested in, access and heritage particularly. And dates are another key thing you'll get on the website as well. Timing, as you'll know, with fundraising is often the kind of key thing that makes all the difference. And I know it's very complex when you're putting together a package potentially of funds from different sources, but the deadlines are key. We let you know the funding deadline and the decision deadline, and nothing can be funded retrospectively. So those things are always pretty important to bear in mind. I'm just going to skip through and show you another one or two here. Great Glen Energy Co-op Fund. This is a different one. This is a cooperative which has a stake in a wind farm. So we deal in that case directly with the board of the cooperative as opposed to a separate volunteer panel. This is quite new in terms of our involvement, and again, it just shows you a slightly different way of operating. So the wind turbines themselves are kind of between Glengarry and Glenmoriston, but the cooperative board have decided to fund in a much bigger area. So they've taken the kind of Great Glen as the focus. So it's basically all the community councils which touch on Loch Ness is what the area that they've chosen. And they have got particular priorities in mind of environment, education and equality. So they've got quite a theme going there. I think that actually might be Andy in that picture, and Andy's going to talk in a wee minute about his experience of applying for that fund, and hopefully it won't be too painful for me to listen to. But yeah, so just again, it's just they do come in all shapes and sizes. We do have various funds in Caithness and Sutherland. Nothing in Arden and Merkin, unfortunately. I'm not going to go into this in great detail. I think a lot of the principles apply across the way in terms of there'll be set amounts, there'll be set timescales, and there'll be set priorities for that local area, and that's the kind of key thing to bear in mind if you're looking to apply to any of the funds. So there is the Lairg wind farm and the Rose Hall one, which also covers Lairg, and I'm sure you people in that area will be aware of that. And there's a range of other funds which cover the Caithness area, and it might be better kind of specific questions about that at the end. It's actually my colleague Ailey in the north, who again I'm sure a lot of you will already know, who deals with that, but if there's anything we can help with, we can take some questions on those too. I am going to stop there. I think that's long enough for me to rabbit on. and I'll hand back to the other Marion.
Thank you. Excuse me, both Mercedes and Marion for the presentation. There was just one question that came in, Marion, while you were chatting. Alison was asking, is the application form the same for all funds, even though they have different criteria and requirements?
So there's a generally, yes, so there's a standard set of questions that we ask. And then if there are specific questions pertinent to a fund, they'll be there kind of additionally. And you can see the standard set of questions generally on that page where you head into the application form. You can click on a link and find the standard questions before you start, so you can see what we're looking for. I mean, there's basic things about the organisation that we require. There's some kind of basic criteria in terms of how you're set up. You know, we're looking for an organisation with a constitution and a set of accounts and a bank account and 2 signatures. There's sort of certain, you know, pretty standard criteria really. And then there's basic questions about your organisation, about the need for the project, but what you're going to do and what impact it's going to have. And then any specific questions to the fund will be additional to that. You can also, as you're applying online, you know, you can save it and go back into it as well. But I know a lot of folk, if they're doing it as a group, as a committee, it's helpful to do it offline sometimes. So the questions are available on the website.
That's great, thank you. Oh, Miranda's got a question. Go for it, Miranda.
Hi, sorry, my broadband seems to be a bit dodgy this afternoon. Is a feasibility study an appropriate? Could you apply for some money to do a feasibility study to find out if a future project has legs? Is that worth?
Yes, certainly that's often a really good starting point. I mean, again, it depends on the fund, but I say in most cases, what can be funded is very broad. You know, staff costs, professional fees are pretty common, as well as kind of capital items. So there's usually a whole range. I mean, as I say, the thing to be to talk to the fund advisor about your specific idea. But yes, certainly with funds I'm involved in, feasibility studies have been quite a common thing to fund. If you're planning to do something that's, you know, a major project, it's generally a really good starting point. And depending on the scale of the community benefit fund too, it might be the thing that the community benefit fund can contribute to, because it, you know, it depending on the scale of the fund that you're looking for.
Great, thank you.
I mean, I'd say, you know, within in the context of whatever it is you're trying to find out the feasibility of, if that's a charitable, you know, community project, then in theory, yes.
Also, just to say, we have a national programme as well for pre-development capital sort of projects. So they specifically fund feasibility studies, which that's the Crown Estate Community Capacity Grants programme, and that one's slightly different in that it's large scale funding, so up to 50,000 for 12-month projects. But there are a few geographic criteria that apply. So yeah, it'll really be a decision about which fund you feel might be the better fit.
Does anybody else have any questions at the moment?
I just wanted to highlight as well, because I get this question a lot. The question being, if I have a grant with Foundation Scotland, can I apply for another grant at the same time, sort of thing? The answer is yes, providing that it's with sort of a different fund. So there's not really an overlap in funding with one specific fund. But if you wanted to apply for a national programme and also for a community benefit fund programme, then you are able to do so, and you can have multiple applications open at the same time on the portal.
Brilliant, that's really helpful, Mercedes, thank you. If nobody else has any questions, oh sorry Steve, do you
Yeah, I've got just one on that theme that Mercedes had just touched on. If I had a project where we were bringing people together from all parts of Scotland, could we use their local community funds to help fund, for instance, a potential student to get to a training course, especially for the Highlands and Islands, to get down to this central belt? Would that be something that we could organise? Or would that be a tricky thing to do?
Potentially. So, I mean, in the context of the education training fund that I manage, which is Ross-shire, but so there are funds in Caithness. I'll just have to check what the boundaries are for those. So that's specifically for training costs for individuals, which is a bit different from a lot of the community funds again. So do you mean to run the course, or do you mean to send people away on a course? So both. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would depend, I guess, is the question. Probably best to have a specific chat about that if you've got something in mind, and possibly with Ailey up in Caithness in terms of knowing what the different funds are around there. I mean, it's not unusual to create a kind of a we can get an application into one fund and kind of clone it around to various others if that's a relevant, an appropriate thing to do. So it's worth chatting to Ailey probably about your specifics, and I can give you her details if you don't know already.
Yeah, I think I've got them. I mean, we don't know where we're going to run the first course yet, and while most of the course is designed, the marketing around it and how we structure it, and actually how we roll it out is yet to be done. Once we get our heads around some of that, we might be looking for some support and help to actually create that course, populate it with teachers, if you like, me being one, and others, and also obviously some students, if you like, for want of a better term.
I mean, and again, it kind of depends, because if it's a specific course on a particular theme, there might be an easier way to do it through a fund that's specifically for climate, for example, rather than kind of piecing together a kind of complicated community benefit scenario. So, but definitely happy to chat about the specifics of it.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else before we hand over to Andy? We can always come back if anything comes into anybody's minds. We can come back to more questions, but for now I will pass you over to Andy from Loch Ness Hub.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm just going to try and share my screen. I haven't done this for a wee while, so you'll have to bear with me. Entire screen. Folks, can you see that? Can you?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So, hi. So, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to talk about who we are at the Loch Ness Hub, the funding that we've applied for, and the experience that I had in actually going through the funding application. So, to start off with, the Loch Ness Hub is it's a community benefit company. I'm actually a volunteer. I'm one of about 5 or 6 volunteer directors for the hub. All the profits that we make in the hub actually goes back into our community through the Rural Community Association. So we give money back to them, and then they distribute it through the community. We are set up in the old Tourist Information Centre in the car park in the middle of Drumnadrochit Rocket. And we've been in business now since about 2020. Our core business is actually offering baggage and shuttle transfers for the folks that walk the Great Glen Way. So the idea is they turn up at Fort William, we take their bags to their first stopping point, whether it's a B&B or a hotel, they walk it, we pick up the bags the next day after they've left, and we do that all the way through their journey up to Inverness. Or if they're doing it the opposite way around, we'll do it the opposite way around. So like I say, all our profits are invested back in the community. We also manage the community toilets. In fact, today was my date for opening the toilets up. So we look after the toilets, which are very heavily used, especially at this time of the year. We also have a point for folks who have motorhomes for actually putting their disposing of whatever they need to from their motorhomes. One of the things we also have is e-bike hire. Now, the e-bikes we started with, they were bought just about the end of COVID, so we had to go for what we could get hold of, and unfortunately the ones we had were pretty poor. We live in an area where I'll show you where we are. We're in Drumnadrochit. If you want to hire an e-bike, we generally send you out into the hills, and anywhere you want to go, it's quite rocky, and the bikes we had before were not up to the job. So we were very fortunate that the Great Glen Energy Cooperative that's managed by Foundation Scotland were able to provide us with the funding to buy some new e-bikes. And what we've got now is 8 Cube e-bikes. These are proper multi-terrain bikes, which have been in, we've had them operating now since April, and they've been very, very well received, very well used. In fact, on the picture of the map there, I'm sorry, I didn't realise what the audience was going to be. So I guess hopefully everyone knows where Drumnadrochit is. But we look after the Great Glen, which is the Great Glen, the Glenurquhart, which is everywhere to the left of Drumnadrochit that you can see there. And amongst there is some fantastic trails. And so our tourists and also our residents can hire these bikes and go off and go around the trails all over the place. And it's very well received. And also for the hub, it also is another source of revenue for us that goes back into the community. Additionally, because they're electric bikes, it's persuading people to actually get out of their cars and use a more environmentally friendly form of transport to go around the area. So the experience I had with the funding, the e-form was brilliant, actually. Once you actually get logged on, the actual e-form I found was very straightforward. I was very happy that if I did get a problem, I was able to email Marion, and she was very helpful in providing me with the answers I needed. And in fact, it was something someone mentioned earlier that, sometimes I don't know whether or not a form is actually good enough for loads of different fundings, because sometimes you have different ideas, and your funding application may be a little bit off the beaten track. But this form seemed to be very good. That you can actually, you've got a lot of free text boxes where you can write in loads of information. So I found it very good. I did point out to Marion, when I used the form, there was a couple of fields that didn't seem to work properly, but she passes it on to the technical people and they seem to fix it very quickly. So all in all, I thought very good. And we were very fortunate. We asked for 20,000, we got 18,000. We got ourselves some lovely bikes. Really very happy. And that's really everything from me. If there's any questions.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
I would just maybe say this is kind of a Foundation Scotland thing. I don't think it's necessarily what happens everywhere else, but our kind of approach when the applications come in, hopefully we have spoken to people beforehand, but when the application comes in, we almost always have a conversation with the applicant, and then the decision-making panel, they don't actually see the application form, they see a report that we've written based on the application and the conversation that we've had. And we find that that the aim of that is just to give the panel as much information as possible so they can make a decision there and then, although they also have the possibility of, looking for more information if they need it, or, they can set conditions. And it's not necessarily hard yes or no. There's always a few maybes in there. But I think that's quite helpful if people know that if they are applying to us, that they will have a chance to speak to somebody, because I think it's quite a good leveler. On the one hand, I mean, many people, you can't help but get experience at form filling if you're in the voluntary sector for 5 minutes, but it's not everybody's comfort zone at all. And I think it's helpful for people to realise maybe that, it's not how well you can write that magic paragraph that's going to determine whether you get funding or not, because we will have a chat with you, and it's amazing how people are generally far more confident talking about their project than writing about it. So but that's our kind of standard approach, so just to be aware, don't agonize over your sentence structure.
No, I think you're right, Marion. Certainly of all the funding applications I've had to fill in as a volunteer, this is probably one of the easier ones. I did say it was quite intuitive, so which is good to see.
That's really helpful, both because just thinking about our membership here at the Hub, we've got over 300 members now, and varying levels of experience in submitting funding applications. And I think there can be a lot of intimidation around the idea of completing some funding applications. So it's nice to hear that, actually, because we know that from our own conversations with members, that actually are a lot more confident in telling you conversationally what they want to achieve and why they want to achieve it, and it can be just transporting that onto paper. So that's really interesting.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Marion.
No, carry on.
It's just would you recommend people calling maybe to chat before submitting the application, or is it worth trying to fill it in and then discussing it with, well, it would be Ailey in our area, for example?
I think it's always worth having a a quick phone call or an email, because it just gives you the reassurance that you are on the right track, in terms of, and then it just does kind of flag it up to the fund advisor, and they're, expecting it to come in, and there may well be some thing that we can, we don't do masses of development work with applicants, but there's potential that we could say, oh, so and so down the road is doing something similar, or
Yeah.
there's always that chance that, or might have some ideas of other funding sources too. So I think, I think it's, I don't know if Mercedes would agree. Sometimes I guess you do programs with many more applicants, you might not want that, but I think generally, have a quick conversation and just make sure you're on the right track before you start. There's no harm in it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those no harm, no foul sort of situations. And within the context of the programs I run, because I manage national funds, but also individual philanthropists, we always try to find a home for an application. So if it might not be a best fit with fund for the fund that you've applied for, whether that's because of eligibility or competition, we do have the benefit, the foundation, of going to some of our individual donors who we know have specific priorities, and putting certain projects by them. So a lot of projects do get picked up, and they by different funds, and found, different homes are found. So it's quite beneficial in that way.
Yeah, must be really helpful to be able to have all those connections, so that you can sometimes match up something that just fits, for the both. I actually also wanted to say to Andy, having the community like toilets with all the facilities for the motorhomes and stuff, I think that's fantastic. It's something that's really lacking up where we are. So
we have heard this, Alison, that and in fact our friends up in Muirvord, they're having a nightmare with theirs because they keep getting vandalized. So we've been very lucky with ours that we spent a lot of money actually when we started up. We actually had them all redone, so they were all brand spanking new, and so far we've done okay. It's been all right. It's all volunteer, as it's not paid for by the council, it's ours. We don't expect payment, but we do have a donation box outside. Unfortunately, the donations don't pay for everything, so that's part of our profits go into the toilets, but that we're providing a facility. And if you're ever passing by Drumrocket, please pop in. Yeah. They are very good, I have to say. They are very good.
Thanks.
This is probably a question directed both at Andy and Marion, and I guess the answer will be it depends. But for your particular project, Andy, how long would you say the process was from filling out your application to actually being able to purchase the bikes? How was it? Months? Is it?
I think it took us 3 months tops. Really, it was the application probably went in around about January time, and I think we were buying the bikes by March. Really, it was so quick.
So you were able to do it for that tourist season, then,
I think the thing is when I'm probably teaching you folks to suck eggs, but it's preparation is key. Knowing what you actually want your money for and having all the background information. For bikes, it wasn't just a case, I want to buy a bike. I had to go out and do research, what kind of bikes we wanted and who could supply them and at what price. And as I was saying to Marion at the time, it's a nightmare because the market at the time was so fluctuating that the prices were up and down, because for push bikes at the moment the market's flooded, so vendors were selling it with quite decent markdowns. And actually what we ended up doing, we wanted money for 6 bikes. The money we got actually ended up paying for 7 bikes, and we actually paid for an 8th one ourselves, so it's a nice round figure. So we did very, very well And again, it was just because of the market at the time. But I would definitely say just know exactly what you want, you know. And I think that certainly Marion was very good at being able to sort of steer me in the right direction when it came to, ask, what do I ask for? Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And I guess, Marion, that's when I was sort of thinking that it depends. I guess all applications are different. Some would be 3 months, like Andy's experience, but some would be longer. Some might even be shorter.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, there's about a 6 to 8 week gap between our funding deadline and the decision-making meeting. And then the outcome's pretty quick after the decision meeting. The main issue, I suppose, a lot of the community benefit funds, they only have 2 deadlines a year, sometimes only 1. Some have rolling programmes, so it does depend from that point of view.
Yeah.
There's a small grant strand to the Great Glen one where we turn it around in 3 weeks for projects up to 2,500. That's a wee bit unusual as well, probably. But I think, as Andy says, the key thing is that the more prepared you are at the time you apply, then the easier it is for the panel to make the decision, and then there won't be conditions attached to it, and then everything happens a lot quicker. Obviously, some projects that's not the case. If it's something that's much more complicated and you need planning permission and you need building warrants and this and that, often an award will come with conditions, and it just takes time to. But the flip side of that is, I think, is we're flexible too if things do take longer. I think it's all about that. I think about having a conversation. So if things change, or if you can't get what you need, or if things take longer, we can be pretty flexible in terms of giving folk the time. We're trying to be helpful. We're not there to put barriers up for the sake of it, definitely. And it's in everybody's interest that these things go ahead. So sometimes folk need more time rather than less.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any other questions? I'm conscious that we're approaching 3 o'clock when this meeting was scheduled to end, so I don't want to keep anybody over time. But if there are other questions, please let us know. And while everybody's thinking, I'll give one last thank you to both Marion and Mercedes from Foundation Scotland for joining us today, and of course Andy as well for sharing his experience. I hope you have enjoyed the session. If there's anything else funding related that the Hub can provide for members, please do let us know. Any events that you think would be beneficial for your organisation, we're always pleased to hear, and happy to try and facilitate events like this to progress everybody's projects, everyone's communities, and taking climate action. So yes, what I will do now is, if no one's got any other questions, I will organise the recording. I'll email everybody a copy of the recording. And if you're okay with that, Marion and Mercedes, I'll CC you both into the email, so then we've got contact details, and I'm sure it'll be okay to share Ailey's as well for those who might not have it, although I'm sure that lots of the Caithness crew will have spoken to Ailey before, but I'm sure she won't mind us CCing her in as well. So
there's also Chris Lee is the other colleague who's involved in the Sutherland project. So
grand.
I can give you his details too, and then we're all
circulate
all
that as
together.
Well. Perfect. Thank you so much, Marion. It's just to put some other people showing their appreciation for everybody who spoke today, so that's great. If there's nothing else, I guess we will just say goodbye for now, and please do let us know if there's any other funding related topics you'd like us to cover, and we will do our best to offer something.
Great, thanks very much, guys. Really nice to meet you all. All the best.
You.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye.
Cheers.